Welcome to this explainer, where we're unpacking the dramatic corporate tragedy of Blockbuster and Netflix. We're going to see how a massive empire was essentially destroyed from the inside out. Now, we've all heard the punchline, right? The giant video rental chain gets completely crushed by the upstart tech company. But when you dig into the actual data and the internal decisions that were being made at the time, the truth is way more fascinating and honestly, a lot more agonizing. Because it wasn't just a failure to see the future, it was a conscious decision to ignore it. So let's dive right into how a hidden addiction brought down an absolute titan.
To really set the scene, picture this number: $50 million. Back in the year 2000, three desperate startup founders walked into a Dallas, Texas skyscraper. They were offering to sell their bleeding, cash-strapped company for that exact amount. Sitting across from them was John Antioco, the CEO of Blockbuster, who was the undisputed king of a multi-billion-dollar entertainment empire. So how did that pivotal meeting go? Well, the Blockbuster CEO literally laughed them out of the room. He didn't just politely decline the offer, he found the entire proposition genuinely comical.
But the joke was entirely on them, wasn't it? Because that tiny, struggling startup was Netflix. Today, Netflix is a streaming behemoth worth over $200 billion. And Blockbuster? They're basically a ghost of the past, holding on to exactly one surviving store in Bend, Oregon, mostly just as a nostalgic tourist novelty. But to truly wrap our heads around how a $200 billion streaming giant was completely dismissed and exactly why Blockbuster ignored the deal of a lifetime, we really need to look closely at Blockbuster's hidden addiction.
Part 1. A Late Fee Empire, the Peak of Blockbuster.
To really understand that legendary laugh in the Dallas boardroom, we first have to grasp Blockbuster's seemingly invincible grip on the culture at the time. Blockbuster absolutely owned the weekend with an unmatched physical presence. They had 9,000 global retail stores planted in nearly every major neighborhood. They employed 60,000 people worldwide. For all intents and purposes, they held a virtual monopoly on home entertainment. They looked utterly untouchable. But their massive success and sprawling physical footprint actually concealed a fatal flaw. It was a dark secret built right into their core business mechanics.
In the year 2000, an absolutely staggering $800 million of their revenue came purely from late fees. Let that sink in for a second. That means a full 16% of their entire global revenue was generated by punishing their own customers.
So the crucial and, quite frankly, terrifying point is this. If customers actually followed the rules and returned their movies on time, Blockbuster would have lost money. Their underlying business mechanics were fundamentally addicted to a cash cow that relied entirely on a customer experience people actively despised. They were financially motivated to hope you forgot to return your VHS tape.
Part 2. The no-fee threat. Netflix is born.
That widespread customer resentment eventually sparked a revolution. In 1997, a man named Reed Hastings got hit with a super frustrating $40 late fee for returning a copy of Apollo 13, and he realized there just had to be a better way. This created a brilliant divide in the market. On one side, Blockbuster doubled down on the convenience of their brick-and-mortar stores, completely banking on the idea of instant gratification. You want a movie tonight? You drive to the store tonight. But on the other side, Hastings' new company, Netflix, offered a radical, stress-free model, renting DVDs entirely through the mail, keeping them as long as you want, with absolutely zero late fees.
Initially, Blockbuster just didn't care. To them, DVDs were this tiny niche market, and mailing discs took days, which they figured couldn't possibly compete with instant rental. But while Blockbuster was busy scoffing at the slow pace of mail delivery, Netflix was quietly building something much more powerful behind the scenes. They were developing an algorithmic weapon specifically designed to learn user preferences and predict exactly what customers wanted to watch next.
Part 3. Boardroom Blunder. Why they said no.
So let's jump back to the year 2000, to the real crux of this story. The dot-com crash just happened, and Netflix was running out of cash fast. They were desperate. So Hastings offered Blockbuster the ultimate deal: buy Netflix for $50 million, and in exchange, Netflix would handle Blockbuster's entire online presence. It was literally a silver platter offer to dominate the digital future. So why on earth did this entertainment behemoth say no? Why did they choose to laugh instead of listen?
The answer boils down to profound corporate hubris. Blockbuster simply couldn't conceive of a world where their 9,000 physical stores weren't the absolute center of the universe. They had built such a massive, heavily invested physical retail footprint that it created a total blind spot. The internal bureaucracy of managing thousands of leases and physical inventories made it completely impossible for leadership to imagine a future of entertainment that bypassed the retail store entirely.
And the timeline of the fallout from that decision is just brutal. By 2002, Netflix begins a rapid ascent. By the time Blockbuster finally realized their catastrophic mistake and belatedly launched their own digital service, Blockbuster Online in 2004 to try and fight back, the landscape had completely shifted right out from under them. By 2006, their physical store counts were in an absolute freefall.
Part 4. Wall Street Revolt. The Pushback.
Now, here is where the story gets really wild. When they launched Blockbuster Online and dropped those hated late fees to compete with Netflix, it actually worked at first. They won back millions of subscribers. But doing so triggered a massive new crisis. Dropping those fees meant bleeding cash instantly. Hundreds of millions in revenues simply vanished from their balance sheet. And Wall Street, who was totally addicted to those steady numbers, absolutely panicked. This triggered a massive revolt led by activist investor Carl Icahn. The board demanded a return to traditional revenue models, they fired the CEO who was trying to pivot the company online, and violently pulled the plug on their only viable digital transition.
Part 5. The Core Lesson. Corporate Suicide.
That internal civil war over legacy profits was nothing short of corporate suicide. You see, Blockbuster's demise wasn't just a failure to acquire new technology or simply bad luck. It was a conscious choice to fiercely protect a business model that their customers actively hated. By fighting internally to save a dying cash cow, they left the door wide open. Netflix successfully pivoted to streaming video in 2007, while Blockbuster chose the comfort of $800 million in punitive late fees over true innovation, drifting helplessly into bankruptcy by 2010.
I want to leave you with this really powerful thought. If you don't find a way to make your own product obsolete, someone else gladly will. Blockbuster refused to make their physical stores obsolete, so Netflix did it for them. And that begs a crucial question for all of us. What deeply entrenched cash cows are you fiercely protecting today that might be blinding you to the future? Think about that for a while, and I'll see you in the next explainer.